Hi, Mpata Mali, that's my name. So, this person is a millionaire, and this is his family. This person, the millionaire, goes ahead and has an affair. Then his wife, eventually, after finding out, ends up dead. No! There's a saying that goes, money can buy you love, but it doesn't mean you can afford it. This is the case of Jason Thomas Rohde. Jason, a South African born in Europe, traveled a little bit, spent some time in Australia, back and forth, then eventually settling back here in South Africa. In his younger days, he suffered a little bit from low self-esteem. This would explain his short temper he was known for. Eventually, he becomes an overachiever. This goes to show because he became a CEO of a prestigious real estate company here in South Africa known as Lou Geffen Sotheby's International. They sell properties like this or this, but not like this. Susan, the wife, equally came from a loving family as well. Though her past did show her father back in time had an affair, which affected Susan. She had to deal with trust issues her entire life. Well, you combine that with a little bit of age, and you could end up with someone that is extremely fragile. Perhaps this was the case. So now you have the idea where both of them were standing. Well, the two met in the 80s, eventually falling in love and getting married for 23 years, raised 3 beautiful kids, and this was their home in Bryanston, Johannesburg, South Africa. So life wasn't that bad because this area in South Africa, Johannesburg, is known to be real upper class. Wow. So they were kind of an upper class. Jason, a millionaire, Susan, the housewife, the mom who looked after the family. So the nature of Jason's job required him to travel a lot, especially to Cape Town, back and forth here and there. Well, the inevitable happened. Somewhere around 2015, Jason starts having an affair with a very attractive young single mother named Jolene. Her surname is a bit of a mouthful, so I'll skip that to avoid butchering it. Jolene was a real estate agent at the same company, so more or less an employee. So the fleeing goes on until the wife finds out. Late February 2016, and she came across a handwritten Valentine card expressing all the love to someone's husband. As you can imagine, all hell broke loose. She was devastated. She wanted to find out what's going on. One of her worst fears just came to life. Remember, her father? Here we go again. So she got so angry, they started fighting here and there. Eventually, she convinced Jason to grab his phone, call Jolene, put her on loudspeaker, and end things immediately, because this was unacceptable. Ooh. Well, as you can imagine, that's a very tough thing to do, especially for an adult, especially for a boss. But he did and proceeded that. He felt so bad. He tried to work on the marriage after that, or at least that's what he said. But the damage was done. Susan felt betrayed. Eventually, anger, suspicion, anxiety, and humiliation creeped into their marriage. It was the constant questions, the constant phone calls, the constant clinginess, as I can imagine as well, drove the husband mad. Even if he did try to fix things, as he said, he tried hard enough. To the extent of them seeing a marriage counselor, it was still not enough. The marriage just became harder and harder. Every time Jason would be home, it would be questions. Did you sleep with her? What did you find good about her that I don't have? Did you kiss her? How was it? Tell me more. Why are you not talking to me? The wife having more questions. How can this happen? And the husband probably just has had enough. And this would definitely just drive him more away from the marriage rather than closer to it. Things became unbearable. Susan started seeing a psychologist to try and unload the pain that she was feeling. Meanwhile at work, Liu Geffen Sotheby's had a tradition. Every year, they would have a ceremony, a conference, a gala, an award show, more or less, in Cape Town, South Africa, specifically a wine estate known as Spier, which is in Stellenbosch. So this meant all the employees, real estate agents, would be present at this conference, and Susan was aware of this. She decided she was coming to Cape Town with Jason. Reason to that is, she wanted to show that, hey, this is my man and I'm here to keep it, just to show solidarity that the marriage is still strong regardless of whatever's happened. And Jason wasn't happy about it. He tried to stop her, but she wasn't having it. Susan had a sister staying in Cape Town. So on the 21st of July 2016, they arrived at the sister's place to spend the night. Eventually, on the 22nd, they did check in at Spier Hotel. The company was holding the conference at this specific wine estate for 3 days. So over the weekend from the 22nd all the way till the 24th of July 2016. It's in the morning of the 23rd. Before Jason was to go and give his opening speech in the morning, Jason and Sue exchanged some very strong words in the morning, and also followed that with texts that were harsh to each other, and basically more or less Sue attacking Jason for, having an affair. She was angry, she was mad, she was conned, and every moment with them together turned out to be a fight. Because everything was just tense and he wasn't happy that she was there with him. One of the texts from Susan, the wife, to Jason would read, "You are a devious bastard." Jason would continue to text, "What's your problem? I'm sitting in a conference with 150 people watching me." Susan would continue to text, "You are going to die today. So is she." Then Jason obviously text, being angry, "You know what? You can now pack your bags and leave if you want to." So the texts would continue back and forth. That would just give you a glimpse of how the morning went between Susan and Jason. Insults here and there, whatever you can think of. Basically, two couples would be exchanging over the phone if they were fighting. "I know you're going to divorce me, so I'm doing what I want." Jason would reply, "You seem to hear and think what you want to hear and think. You always just go off on a tangent." After a few exchanges here and there, still texting, still fighting over the phone, Jason eventually is busy. Went on with the ceremony. He was the boss, so he had the opening speech. The day goes by, award ceremony goes on, everything is okay. And later on, definitely there will be an after party at the bar, but Jason was not allowed to go there because Jolene would be there, and Susan did not want that. And so now Jason would try as hard as he could not to look at Jolene or any eye contact, as he feared, because the wife was there and Jolene was there. So clearly by now it's a love triangle, if we should call it that. Jason has had it with his marriage and he wants out, and the affair is getting more and more stronger as the day goes by. Jolene, not being innocent herself, aware that Jason is married, still, they go on with this little fling that they're having. But before that, or during that time, not very sure when, Jason at one point would go on and send a text that read, "This weekend made me realize just how much I don't want to be with Sue anymore. All I can think of is you. I want to scream with frustration. I don't want anything more in my life than to be with you." Aww. Jolene replied, "You're my penguin forever. Jason would continue to text, "Having you close is driving me crazy. Sue is driving me nuts. She follows me around like a fucking shadow." Obviously, the challenge Jolene and Jason were facing. Later that night, still on the 23rd, after the conference and the gala, Sue texted her psychologist, and her message was, "I shook her hand and said, I hoped we didn't have to ever meet again." And the psychologist would reply, "Did it leave you feeling in control?" Susan answered, "Yes." The psychologist would send a last message that was never read. "Great, so tomorrow you will be better. Have a good night." After the conference, after the after party, the gala, Susan forced Jason to go back to the room with her. To avoid being embarrassed, he has to go back with her to the room, but he's feeling quite unsettled because once they get there, she's still nagging him. Like, "Oh, I know you just wanted to go be with her. I know you just want to be there." So he's getting more and more agitated and more uncomfortable. During the course of the night, he sneaks into the bathroom, takes out his phone and starts texting Jolene. Eventually, Susan finds out and busy texting Jolene, and she goes bonkers. Witnesses came during the trial, and they would give account of how they were able to hear the fighting going on from different rooms. So Jason gets enough and he's like, I can't take this anymore. As a matter of fact, I'm tired of this marriage. I'm leaving right now." And it becomes kind of a scuffle, and eventually he leaves the room. She follows him from room to the next room to the next room. Feeling more embarrassed as a boss, and this is getting out of hand. Jason decides to go back to the room and, just hold on until the next day. Probably they could go back to Johannesburg and just leave this all alone. But once they get into the room, it's not that. Susan goes on and on. She is hurt. She is crying. Between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning, 24th, Susan was texting Jolene, calling. They were just busy fighting. After 7, a few minutes after 7 is when Susan woke up. "Jason, look what you sent me. This is the message." And Jason is like, I can't have this. So he turns around and continues sleeping. Then Susan goes into the bathroom and she never comes out again. This was Jason's account.
So the cord was like that. The cord was around her neck, and she's in this position like that. Obviously I've opened the door like that, and she is in that position with the cord suspended around her neck. Her feet are pointing directly towards the base. He's facing, so I come through around here. I see her feet pointing this way. Then I knew why the door was opening. I push the door open, I get through the door, I come around here and I pick Susan up in that position. I immediately called for Mr. Daniels, immediately. She was very heavy. I picked her up under her arms.
There was a point at night where Susan got her phone, and records do show that she tried to call Jolene's number, but it went directly into voicemail. And with that, she left a very, very nasty voicemail. Think of a wife sending the husband's mistress kind of voice note. So it would not be pleasant at all. And I think Jolene woke up around, I'd say 5 a.m. or 6 and saw the message. And eventually she replied, "Please go wash your mouth." After all those words, Susan, being very angry, replied, "You wash your own fucking mouth after you sucked my husband's." A few hours later is when Jason was calling the reception and calling out for help, only to find that his wife had committed suicide or hanged herself, as he said. Susan was no more and she was dead. So the reason I've gone around this story in this manner, going into those small minor details, is to build up and to show you how tension can grow, how a lot of stress can be put on a person where it is possible for one side to snap. It doesn't justify someone to kill someone, but anything can happen. It could be maybe she was hitting him, maybe she was spitting on him and shouting at him, and maybe he pushed her back. "Hey, shut up." She might have fallen and hit her head. Then he panicked. Then he's like, okay, what do I do? So there's all those situations to be looked at as well. And yeah, it's the results that justify the deeds. So yeah, so this was a crime of passion, and it should be looked at in that way. Look, most people had great things to say about Jason. A normal person. He was loved by many, and not quite a bad history. He was just a normal person, a little bit short temper here and there, but who is not? Susan as well. Susan, being a housewife to a millionaire, was doing the more upmarkety, wifey thingies that they would do. Attend charities, be ahead of that, chairman of this, chair lady of that, what she did. So she was also equally loved. The family was well taken care of, 3 amazing daughters. So both of them, there was nothing really out of the ordinary apart from their affair, which was also, not that surprising. Though when the doctors, the marriage counselor and the psychologist were to come in as witnesses, my take on it is they could clearly see Susan was suffering from depression, though they didn't see anything major, anything vital, anything dangerous, nothing extreme. So probably it was just building up slowly to a point as to maybe she couldn't handle it. And that's my take on it. So Jason was found guilty and was sentenced to 20 years behind bars. It's a bit harsh. I feel could have probably got a little bit less. This was probably a crime of passion. Maybe he was cornered, maybe he couldn't take it. He just probably snapped. Maybe pushed her, shoved her, she fell, hit her head, and there was a point of no return. And he panicked and he decided to kind of probably make it look like a suicide. Something like that. Or probably she might have hung herself. It's not impossible, but highly unlikely, as I said. What do you think? Do you think Jason deserves the 20 years? Or do you think he probably should have got something a bit lighter and, they could have looked at the story properly? Because yes, he had an affair, but I don't think he is a killer. He doesn't, it's judging from the story, he just snapped or something. But let me know what you think in the comments below about this story. So I found it to be a bit kind of normal, but not normal, kind of thing, if it makes sense.